everyone! Today I'm going to be talking about some of the oldest books that are in my collection. I've got around 18 books to talk about today, so I'm going to try to go pretty fast, but I just wanted to show you. I think the oldest book I have is from the 1800s, and then the latest I'm going to go is like the 50s. So yeah, let's get into it. If you like this video, please be sure to like and subscribe and hit the bell icon to get notified when I post a new video. Here's an overview of the books that I'm going to be talking about, and I've put them in order of the year that they were published. And now I'll go through them one by one and show you some of the cool things that have been inscribed in them and talk a little bit about what each book is about. So this first book that I'm going to talk about is the newest of the oldest books that I have. This is from 1952, and it's a collection of stories that were actually copyrighted earlier than that. It's the Scribner Treasury, which I believe was a magazine, and so these would have been stories that were included over weeks, and readers could come back and see what else would happen in the story, kind of thing. Also just short stories. Here is the list of authors. One that immediately caught my eye was James Barrie, who wrote Peter Pan. And there's some other classic authors in there. Inside there's a flyer for the Bible and the American Bible Society that I just realized was in here. And this is also pretty old. It tells you all about the society. I don't immediately see a date on it, but yeah, apparently someone was using this as a bookmark. So that's kind of cool. In the very front, there's a name inscribed, but no date or anything besides the actual copyright date inside in the front cover. And again, this is published by Scribner's Sons. So yeah, that is the first book. This is the next book. It's called Pavilion of Women, and it's by Pearl Buck, writer of The Good Earth. And this particular book is from 1946. And I got this at a local antique store, and I'm interested to read it because I actually haven't read The Good Earth, but I've heard a lot about Pearl Buck, and I would like to be able to read more of what she's written. And the front of this has an inscription as well. It says Nellie H. Nixon, Christmas 1948, from Margaret something. And then on the front there's just a little inlay of the title, and same on the side. So this next book, I'm honestly not even sure where I got this. I want to say maybe it was at our used library book sale or something, or I don't know, but the front cover is a little beat up and it's pretty worn away, but originally there would have been, you can kind of see the outline of like a sticker on the front with people on it. This is Andersen's Fairy Tales, and it says illustrated by Arthur Szczyk, S-Z-Y-K, and it's kind of plain on the outside because that sticker is gone, but then you open it to the inside, and this is like the whole reason I had to have it. Look how beautiful! And I looked this up online, and apparently it would have been part of a set originally, and it came with Andersen's in green and then Grimm's Fairy Tales in a red cover with similar illustrations. So maybe one day I'll be able to find the other one. This is the back, and I think it's the same illustration. And this particular edition is from, let's see if I can find it again, 45. You can see it right there in Roman numerals. And it contains all the stories you would think, basically. There's also illustrations throughout the book that are really interesting. Here's one. And I just think this book is so pretty. It's a little bit fragile. The front cover is kind of coming off. It's separated from the spine, but I'm just trying to be careful with it, I guess. The cover is actually like fabric. So pretty. This next book is from 1944, continuing to move back in time, and it's Tales of Edgar Allan Poe. And this is a Random House edition. So on the front you can see the Random House logo, and then inside there's this kind of geometric pattern. I'm not sure if it's supposed to be representative of a face. It kind of looks like one. And it says that this has an introduction and then wood engravings throughout. So the illustrations are really interesting because they're just like wood stamps, basically. Here's one of them. This next book is also from 1945, and it's Idols of the King and the King's Henchmen, which are Noble's comparative classics. This is a Noble and Noble edition, and they're like King Arthur tales. So it says the King's Henchmen, originally published by Harper and Brothers and copyrighted 1927, is used in this book by special permission, and then the Holy Grail and the King's Henchmen have purposely been shortened for this edition. So they're abridged versions of the stories. And this was printed and bound in the USA. It says dedicated to all who ride abroad redressing human wrongs. So I think this book is so pretty. I love the silver inlay, and the title font used is so pretty. So there's that one. The next book we have is a Classics Club edition of Walden by Henry David Thoreau, and it has the CC on the front. And this is also from 1945, and it has red edges only on the top, though. It's kind of weird, but I had to read this for school, so I actually found this at a book sale because we needed a copy. Inside it has a save $5 from regular price for Black's Readers Service Company. I don't know what that is. I doubt you could still mail this in, but it was inside of the book when I bought it. So it's just been living in there ever since. I hated this book so much. This is probably my least favorite classic I've ever read, and I just still have it because it's old and pretty on the outside. So okay, so this next book, it says it was copyright 1941, but I'm just now realizing that I looked at it wrong. And the text is 1941, but the illustrations are copyright 1953. So this is actually a lot newer than I had originally thought. But this is Little Town on the Prairie, and the outside has these cute pictures of the prairie town and of Laura and her sisters. And then inside you can see it has withdrawn all over it because it's a library book, or it was a school library book. And it has a name in the front, Linda Gale. And it's just really cute. There's little illustrations kind of all throughout. The spine is definitely broken, but overall still in pretty good condition. I found this random card inside that is bright green. I'm assuming this is my bookmark from when I tried to read it when I was younger. Not for sure though, but on this page you can see the binding threads coming through, and it's bound in this red thread, so it's really pretty. But that is Little House on the Prairie. So then my book collection kind of has a big gap in the 30s where I don't have any books, and then we have this. This is From Day to Day with Tennyson, and it's poems, and like it says, each one has a date at the top, and you're supposed to kind of read one every single day, I guess. This is like a softback book, but it has these flaps inside that cover the cover, but it's attached at the back, so it's almost like a book jacket, but not really. Also, it's tearing really bad, so it's scary to open it. But it has this gold inlay, nothing on the spine, and inside the front cover, someone has written a note. It says, "To thine own self be true, and it shall follow as the night, the day. Thou canst not then be false to anyone. With love and best wishes, Margaret, June 16th, 1925. And inside, we have a picture of Tennyson and the title page with a piece of tissue paper, and this is separating. Oh, and again I was wrong. Okay, so this was given in 1925 as a gift, but if you look at the copyright, which these pages are falling out, but if you look at the copyright, it's actually from 1911, so this is older than I was anticipating. So these are not in order anymore. But anyway, that's Day to Day with Tennyson. Throughout the entire thing, it says class night and baccalaureate services, so someone was writing in kind of what was happening on that day, I guess, to kind of keep track as like a diary when they were reading this. So it's really interesting to go through each day and see what was happening in that person's life in the 20s. So yeah. This next book has kind of this marbled-y paper cover, but it is a hardback. It's just been covered. And the title is super hard to read because it's just been sort of stamped into the spine, but this is Sunset Gun Poems by Dorothy Parker, and this is copyright 1928 by Bonnie and Liverite, and Liverite, and it says it's for John. These were all originally published in magazines, and then they've been compiled later into a book. So next we have The Hare by Ernest Oldmeadow, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to make an entire video about this book because I read it, and it's really hard to find any information about this book, so I felt like I needed to find out what it was about, and it was interesting, let me tell you. So that might be coming later. Let me know down below if you're interested in knowing more about this book, but basically it's from 1921 and it's set in the 1800s, and it was really interesting to read, and I read it because, again, I couldn't find anything online about it really, but also I just thought it was so pretty. Like, the front cover has a little church down in a valley, and then on the side there's like a church door. So this is very pretty, and I don't think this had any inscriptions in it. No. And this is by the Century Company. It says, "To EFG, not with a pen of gold in blood of roses dipped, not on fair vellum scrolled, I wrought for you my script. Here are no colors gay, here are plain black and white, the white for eager day, the black for kindly night." So I just thought it was cute. This next book is from 1916, and it's another Charles Scribner's Sons edition, and this is the collected works of Richard Harding Davis, including Von Bibber and others. It's really pretty. On the front there's an inlay of RHD for Richard Harding Davis, and inside, like on this page, there's an illustration that also looks like it could be a woodcut, I think. And at the beginning there's an author photo and another piece of tissue paper. So this is really pretty. So the next book is Robert Browning's poems, and you can see that it has sort of a burnt into the leather, maybe, or carved into the leather, a woman, and the name has been written in gold, and it also has gold edges. they're kind of wearing off. It's harder to tell, but it's still pretty shiny on top. And like I said, this book has a leather cover, and inside the paste down is some sort of like satiny, I'm not exactly sure, but if you look really close you can see the lines of glue underneath it where they glued it down. It looks really cool. It's kind of like cow print. And then the next page looks like it could have some mold damage, but it also has been repaired with tape at some point because it is coming out of its binding a little bit. And it says, "To Miss McDonald, Christmas 1913. And with these next few books that I go through, most of them actually don't have a publication date printed into the book. They'll have a publisher's name and an author's name and stuff, but not the actual date. But also most of these old books have someone's name and a date inscribed in them, so I'm assuming that they're at least as old as the date that's written in them, because that just makes sense. So this is 1913 or earlier. It's hard to say, but anyway, here is an illustration in the front. It says, "The Last Ride Together," so no real explanation of who these people are. That might be one of his poems, I'm not sure. It says, "The shorter poems of Robert Browning based on author's own selections." And this is published in New York by Thomas Y. Crawley Company. And then it's actually dedicated to Alfred Tennyson, whose poems we looked at earlier, and they've used this beautiful black letter type for Tennyson's name. It says, "In poetry, illustrious and consummate, in friendship, noble and sincere." So, sounds like Tennyson was a pretty nice guy, at least to Browning. And then there's the table of contents. But I really love this book. I think it's so pretty. And it definitely has some binding issues, but leather holds up for a long time. So, it's doing pretty well. So all of these last few books that I've talked about after the Laura Ingalls books, I got all of them at a local antique store that has a lot of old antique books. And so prior to that, I had kind of a haul the other day. Prior to that, this was the oldest book that I had, and this is The Tailor of Gloucester, and it's by Beatrix Potter, who wrote Peter Rabbit and some other stories about animals for children. And this has a stamp in the front where it used to belong to a library. You can also see the binding cords are pulling through, but that's okay. It says, "No longer property of the Dayton and Montgomery County Public Library," so I'm not exactly sure where that is. But look at the front pages. There's little animals, and they're reading and stuff. Oh, and it has their names. Peter Rabbit, Mrs. Tittlemouse, Two Bad Mice. And here's another illustration at the beginning. And this is copyright 1903 by Frederick Warren and Company. And then the copyright was renewed in 1931. I didn't even look at that. So it's actually not as old as I was anticipating. But this is from 1931. That was my cat. Here's another illustration. And yeah, so the front has this little mouse on it, and then the back has a bunch of due date stickers on it. And then there's the spine. But this is just super cute. It's so small, and it's pretty old. This next book is a little bit different. It's called Stiller's Wilhelm Tell, the revised edition, and then it says Palmer, who I think is the editor. And then on the front we have an inlay of an eagle with a crown, I think. It's a little bit worn, so it's not as deep as it should be, but it seems like it might be an eagle. And then in the front there's an inscription from 1916, and there's this beautiful handwriting, and it says Alma Midget, Elizabeth City, North Carolina, and this definitely looks like it was written with like a ballpoint pen or like a fountain pen. That's what I mean, a fountain pen. It's really pretty. And then over on the side, I'm not sure what the name is, but last name is still Midget. And then at the front it says last 6 lessons in grammar. And then as you can see, the spine is kind of separating from the book in the middle, so I'm trying not to open it too wide. But then here we have that beautiful black letter again. And that was like the whole reason I needed this book, is because the lettering inside is so pretty. But here's Frederick Schiller. I don't know if I'm saying that right. And the copyright page says that this is Henry Holt and Company, and that it's copyright 1915. And then here is the author's coat of arms, which is interesting. And there's a preface, and the preface is written, you know, in just kind of your typical like Times New Roman font. But then throughout the rest, it's this beautiful black letter font. I don't know if that's focusing. And then also someone has written notes as they try to translate it, because the entire book is written in German, except for the preface, which is in English, which was helpful for figuring out what exactly was going on. And then inside of the book, there's this little piece of newspaper. And it says, Roanoke Island to outfig the state, but it can't cope with Salvo when it comes to the size of the trees. So this entire article is about the figs that they're growing on Roanoke Island, and I don't know why anyone would save that, but apparently somebody was very interested in the fig production. The auction store, juniper shingles on the back. So this was definitely someone's bookmark, but they did manage to save the entire fig article, so that was important in some way to someone for some reason. Here is another illustration. It's the Tell Chapel, and this is really pretty. It's on like photo paper, and I don't know if it's an actual photograph. Would it have been an actual photograph at this time? I guess it could have been. Or if it's like a drawing. I'm pretty sure it's photography though. So that is that book, and I'm gonna go ahead and tuck this piece of newspaper back in all the way so it doesn't get torn. So this next book, I couldn't find a copyright date inside at all, so all I have to go off of is the inscription on the inside. But on the outside, we have this lovely floral pattern, and it's been backlayed with gold. So it makes the entire book really shiny. And then this one is supposed to be as well, but it's a little more worn away or tarnished or something. And it's made out of that same material as most of the other books. And then on the inside it says Polly Simpson, and it says T. McN Simpson Jr. I'm not exactly sure what that's supposed to mean. From NC State. So he must have been a student there. And then someone has written 1898. And I don't know if this was contemporary or if it was written later. I'm not exactly sure where that date comes from. But it's also been stamped with like a raised, or I guess pressed from the other side to make this raised symbol. that says Library of Polly Brothers Simpson. So that matches with the Polly Simpson up top, so they must have been a somewhat influential family with a large library and their own library stamp. And then this is Mosses from an Old Manse, and this is the front title page, and it's actually written by Nathaniel Hawthorne, who wrote the Scarlet Letter and is famous for writing, what is the other one? The House of the Seven Gables. So I was interested in this book not only because it's super old, but also because I'd like to read more Nathaniel Hawthorne. I really liked the Scarlet Letter when I had to read it for school. And here's an author photo of him and another title page. And both of these pages are like thicker than the rest. The pages themselves are kind of thin. And again, we have the black letter at the top, this time for titles, and then the rest of it is in your typical kind of Times New Roman font. So anyway, that's that one. So the next book I have is Steele Series in the Natural Sciences, and this is the chemistry book. And I wanted this because look at how pretty the cover is. It has this black background, and this is all pressed in, and it's really pretty. And then on the side it says 14 weeks in chemistry and Steele in gold, and then on the back we have A.S. Barnes and Company pressed in with a bee and some honeycomb. So the outside is very pretty, and then inside it was really hard to figure out how old this might be, and I'm still not sure. Someone has drawn a diagram for something. This would have been a school book for someone. And then inside we have the continuous spectrum produced by pure white passed through a prism, another spectrum, a bunch of spectrums. So there those are, and those are the only things in this book that are in color, pretty sure, and I'm not exactly sure how they would have done the color for those, but it says 14 weeks in chemistry. There's a quote from Longfellow, and then on the publisher copyright page it says entered according to Act of Congress in the year 1873. So I'm not sure if this actual edition is from 1873 because it does include the preface to the first edition, but then it says preface to the revised edition, so I'm not sure if that's the original copyright, but I can't find any other date in this book, so not for sure. But throughout we have these scientific diagrams of different machines. That one is how you manufacture coal gas. Here's potassium on H2O, which apparently smokes. But there's just little drawings throughout that were really cute. And then there's questions. It gives tips for how to teach chemistry. It says in the front that this is the very basics and that they aren't bogging you down with unnecessary scientific terms and that kind of stuff. So this is a very like general overview of basic chemistry. And here is analysis of different elements, which is kind of interesting because they're not all there, but most of them are. So anyway, that is the Steele Series in Natural Sciences. I'm actually pretty sure that this company, this guy, like still has science books out that you can get that are more modern, and they've just like continuously updated them. So it's pretty cool to have one of the first editions. Look, there's a little owl. And these last two books we have actually kind of go together. They're both Caxton editions, and so they have matching covers, but they're just different colors. And I've actually looked into these a little bit, and there's the same edition of lots of classic novels. These two I'm not super familiar with, but I got them because the covers were so pretty. So on the front you have these like leafy spirals, and I guess they're acanthus leaf. And then there's a roller, and the font is just really pretty. And then in the middle you have this quote that says, "May blessings be upon the head of Cadmus, the Phoenicians, or whoever it was that invented books." And I just thought that was so cute. So this particular one is called Old Middleton's Money, and it is by Mary Cecil Hay. And the other one has the exact same cover, just in a darker brown color. And then actually on the side, okay, they both have it. It sticks out much more on this one because it's so much darker, but they both have this little gold strip that tells you the name and the author of the book. So this one is Maid of Athens, and it is by Justin McCarthy. And on the inside, it's the same. And they just start with chapter 1, and it tells you that these were printed and bound by Troe's Printing Company in New York. Belford Clark Company Publishers, but there's absolutely no date in this one. It has really pretty end papers though, they're like floral designs. But the other one, which I got more recently, says presented to Miss Jeannie Collins by her sister, Miss Mary Smith, December 25th, 1872. And so I'm assuming that this one is from 1872 or earlier, and that this one would be similar because they would have been coming out with all of their editions that match around the same time. So not for sure on those, but it seems likely. Also, this one has weird damage at the top. I think it was being eaten by something. So not too sure about that, but it seems okay now. Hopefully it won't continue to degrade there. It looks like it could have been bug or mouse damage, not for sure. But that's what you get with old books, I guess. Alrighty folks, that was all of my oldest books in my collection. This is my cat Gravy. I'm sorry, I'm just now noticing that my window is probably really bright in the background. I hope I didn't blind you throughout this video, and I hope you liked it. Please be sure to like and subscribe, and tune in for my next video. Please leave suggestions for what to do next in the comments. Bye!